Good evening and welcome to this week's recap.
As always, on Undaunted, throughout the week, we have reports from the home front, with a couple of which still reveals the assimilation plans of La République du Cameroon, which has kicked off in full gear, amongst continuous genocide against the people of Ambazonia. We also brought to you some other reports of concern from the international scene.
We brought it all to you this week in full details, but just in case you missed the news in details, we have the recap just after the fresh reports of today coming right up after the break.
Our vision in this interim government is to make ABC a leader and a real war horse of our struggle. We want to grow it, expand it, hire and train more hands, and broadcast round the clock, around the world, and take command of the media space of this world.
You can enjoy all round the clock, 24/7 exclusive moments of bliss as an ABC Amba TV Club member. A cappella. Latest Nigerian/African movies, global politics, ABC Amba News and updates, historical documentaries, and lots more. In our daily programs, we have Undaunted, ABC Amba News, bringing into the news untold stories with Onyi Okpala and Star Smart. Exclusive discussion, revolutionary panel conversation, infotainment, edutainment, intro governmental debates on topical issues with Tar Paddy King, State of the Liberation Movement, Fronting IG and People of Ambazonia's position, the Struggles Weekly Update with Secretary Martin Mungwa, PhD, FASC. Health is Wealth, Health Education and Awareness within the Ambazonian community with Dr. Yaya. Liberation Prayer, an intercessory ministry for Ambazonia with Pastor Victor Amba. Our Freedom, spiritual awareness and education for the Ambazonian community with Pastor Victor Amba and Pastor Commando. Church and Politics, neutralizing the myths and preconceived religious and political philosophies that limit the Christian involvement in the realms of decent politics with Pastor Commando. The Horizon, the voice of the Ambazonian woman with Dr. Patience Abiedo and Lady Casey. Our Amber History, bringing to limelight the hidden history of Ambazonia to the world with Pastor Commando. Appointment on community building, education on patriotism within the Ambazonian communities with Ma Rachel Itatima. Ethics for an Imagined Nation, watchdog of basic principles and morals of a nation at war with Ma Dorothy Ngwa. Upcoming programs: Pigeon News, Vernacular Talk Show, County Roots, Activists Corner, Amba Focus, only on ABC Amba Television. We the people, the voice of the voiceless. For 24/7 access, subscribe as a club member on www.abcambatv.com/subscribe.
Right, you're welcome back. The Colonial Republic of Cameroon government, with its corrupt and deceitful regime, will only raise kids in like manner. The perverse-minded leaders of the BS government are systematically transforming the younger generation to think and act like them. The Colonial Republic of Cameroon system is crafted such that your primary focus should be yourself and careless of your actions to your neighbors.
Well, an Ambazonian goat dealer will surely never recover from the loss he has incurred as the La Republic's youth stole the goat he was taking to the market after a minor accident at Tiasa. Just like the colonial Beers regime, these La Republic youths, without any consideration that it is a source of livelihood to a fellow human, jumped on the truck, looting the goat. We wonder where the consciences of these colonial youths have been kept.
An Amazonian trader has lost his goat to La Republic de Cameroon youth in the Yassa location of La Republic de Cameroon on his way to the market. The La Republic de Cameroon thieves took advantage after the truck transporting the goats had a minor accident. The driver of the truck and the assistants were helpless in front of the violent and determined crowd of La Republic de Cameroon youths with no sign of remorse, with a lone intention to make away with many possible goats.
Well, in a video that Undaunted has, even bike riders could be seen offloading the truck and making away with the goats on their bikes. The number of goats forcefully carried away by these colonial La Republic youths are still unknown. This is the same action that road users are suffering at the hands of the colonial forces of law and order in Amazonia. These thugs have mounted many extortion points on this different routes in Amazonia, harvested where they did not sow. Commercial vehicle drivers are paying the highest price at the expense of passengers to have their way through the different extortion points.
Rabi Babanki has been faring well in the ongoing war in Amazonia, despite the fact that the general effect of the war has been completely in bad shape, especially since the colonial Republic de Cameroon military invaded the village at the request of the fund of Big Babanki. Well, it has been proven that in any area that La Republic de Cameroon occupational forces have invaded in Amazonia, that place must become just a mere shadow of itself, economically and otherwise. Case in point, amongst others, is the last invasion of the colonial Republic de Cameroon soldiers into Kejong Keku, Big Babanki. Well, today, the villagers are barely surviving with little or no economic activity going on.
Well, and the guys to protect the villagers from what only the fawn knows, the thugs of La Republic, which summarily kills, have scared all the active population out of the village, with the aging left behind to fend for themselves. The business hub of Big Babanki is now deserted, leaving it to the new unwanted occupants, the colonial forces, La Republic's military. The Big Babanki market square and business strength of the people has been abandoned to La Republic occupational forces. Shop owners in Big Babanki have abandoned their businesses and fled out of the village for their lives that is being threatened by the La Republic's colonial government forces.
Well, the continuous indiscriminate killing of the sons and daughters of Biba Banki by the colonial La Republic de Cameroon government forces compelled many to run out as all feared being next on the line. At the request of His Royal Majesty, the absentee fund of Biba Banki, the colonial government military entered the village on Sunday, June 11, 2023, and since it's the people of Biba Banki have known no rest but fear of the unknown since then. In less than a month, more than a dozen people have been killed in Big Babanki, including women.
Now, the founder of Big Babanki, who now resides in the colonial capital of La Republique du Cameroon, Yaoundé, acknowledged in an exclusive interview with a news outlet that the colonial La Republique soldiers have carried out atrocities. Attested that he can run the affairs of the village from Yaoundé, he added that he will get to the hierarchy of La Republique's military to call those on the ground to order. The question Undaunted asks is, what will become of those these atrocities of the colonial La Republic's government military have sent to early graves?
Well, moving on, all genocidal tactics have been used by French Cameroon on the minority English-speaking people of the British Southern Cameroon's Amazonia. In this case, the innocent victims were killed and dumped in the bushes in Mayu, discovered on the 4th of April 2019, and the other at Ikiliwindi on the 12th of April 2019.
They were later found at an advanced stage of decomposure. No words from the French Cameroon Hutu militias and their leaders. One victim, Emmanuel, was simply tied to a tree and allowed to rot. This has been going on for years and is still on. Now, President Sako, during an interview with the Secretary of State for Communications and IT, Dr. Martin Bungwa, rubbishes the myth that Frundi, by some means, could be the father of democracy in the Cameroons. In his own words, the president said, "We will not celebrate those who try to kill us just because they failed." According to President Sako, Frundi of blessed memory is unfortunately a bad memory for the peoples of Southern Cameroons. In the highly energized interview that animated Ambazonians home and abroad, the president provided very strong historic and legal and also moral grounds to solidify why John Frundi must not be honored, dead or alive, in Ambazonia. We have the caption for you. Let's see it.
Ni John Frundi is heralded as the one who brought democracy to Cameroon. The question I will first ask is, where is the democracy that he brought? Where is it? Let's show me what he brought that he should be credited for. So that is total nonsense. If what we have today in French Cameroon is what he brought, then he is not worthy of celebration. So that's a mistake. Let's give somebody glory based on the value of what he brought and how it has changed the lives of people. Reagan said that the easiest campaign to do is to ask the people, are your lives different after 4 years? What is the difference? So show me the difference in the lives of the people in the system that you call democratic or democracy, that it is today different from what it was. If you find any difference, then that's what it should be credited for. Listen, let me digress. Heroes are not born. So no one is a hero because of how he was born. Come one, maybe by the time you die, and in the manner that you die, you can become one. Heroes are made. That is why monuments are not raised for the living. They are raised for the dead, because we have a chance to go through their lives, history, and find out what they did, what they started doing, what they continued to do, and what they ended doing. The end of a thing is more important than the beginning. It doesn't matter what great ideas you start life with, what great ideas you propounded, how you finish, and how you finish them is how you will be remembered. We will not celebrate those who tried to kill us just because they failed. We will not celebrate those who tried to kill us and just because at the end they failed and we triumphed. That is exactly what Nijon Frundi did. He came up and building on the hopes of the Southern Cameroonians, and that we wanted a means of canalizing our demands and fighting for our cause and making our voices heard. And we put ourselves together behind this force. And he became the poster boy. Instead of him to drive that agenda, he saw it as an opportunity to become the president of another Cameroon. And he failed. And when he discovered he did not succeed, and he has lost the trust of the constituency behind him, he decided to become the number one person to legitimize the oppressor, the oppressor, the colonizers of La Republique, by going every year into an exercise that he knew was futile, was not going to produce any result, that he needed to participate for the Bolivia to always emerge as a champion, because a champion without a fight is not a true champion. He had to keep on legitimizing Paul Biya as some legitimate leader by providing this phony competition and allowing him to pronounce himself, Biya to pronounce himself as a winner after a competitive election. That's what he did. And then when we decided to fight for ourselves, to take up the challenge on our own, seeing that we have been abandoned, seeing that SDF did not do it, it was hijacked by the oppressor under his command. We decided to rise up. Ambazonia decided to rise up. What did he do again? He changed his address to Yaoundé completely, transferred himself to that, and they started engineering everything, even Honorable Weber had to leave in exile because of him, because he will not stand for the people. He will not stand for his people. He instead engineered the government of La République du Cameroon to kill our people, to go to Nigeria to abduct our leaders, and asked the United States to round up some of us that we are criminals, we should be arrested. It's a shame. This man is a disgrace in our history. For anybody to celebrate him now as some hero is a provocation to the victims and the families that have buried their thousands, that he purposed to be killed by advising his friend and bedfellow, Paul Biya.
Well, you heard that, right? It couldn't have been said any better. Now, just before that response to Dr. Mungo's question by President Sako, the Secretary of State for Communications and IT had provided a very elaborate expose laying down the groundworks of the night's discussion. We saw a discussion that touched on almost every area. It was captioned the Amazonian Revolution and the progress we have made so far. During the over 90 minutes conversation, we saw vision, strategy, and actions that were taken. In fact, one could appreciate the full functioning of your interim government under a visionary leadership. But the interest of what we want you to get today is what Ambazonians need to do when it comes to John Fundi's politicized funeral. And Dr. Mungwer gave the government's position on that. Now let's hear what he said.
To the people of Amazonia, John Frundi does not deserve the honors of a hero, dead or alive. Those who plan to honor his corpse as such are provoking the victims and the families of the 50,000 plus who have been killed by his associate, Paul Biya, in Etudi. We must not allow his remains to be exploited by our oppressors, La République du Cameroon, in a propaganda show to deceive stakeholders that normalcy has returned in Amazonia, or that Amazonians are mourning a one Cameroon hero. We will not be deceived. Ahmadou Ahidjo, who fought for La République du Cameroon independence, reigned for over 2 decades as head of state, and gave Paul Biya power on a golden platter, was never given a burial, let alone heroic, in his hometown Garwa. Therefore, La République du Cameroon's sudden attraction to the mortal remains of Nijon Frundi, to be clothed in green, red, and yellow and paraded in the streets of Baba too, raises suspicion and reeks of desperation. The interim government has therefore declared that the corpse of Frundi, persona non grata, in Amazonia. We call on our ARF from all 13 counties to work actively for a total boycott of any funeral ceremony in honor of this traitor. The IG hereby declares Thursday, July 27th through Saturday, July 29th, a complete lockdown of Amazonia. We reserve the right to make adjustment if we suspect any attempt by the colonizers or by the organizers to bypass our announced date. Anyone who violates this lockdown will surely incur the wrath of the people who consider this politicized funeral a provocation.
All right, welcome back. And that's all we have for you for fresh reports. Let's go to the recap, the highlights of the major stories from the week. Let's start with this report. Reverend Kennedy Akko, a priest from the Mamfe Diocese in Maui County who resides in the USA, issued his resignation letter to the Bishop of Mamfe, Aloysius Fondon Abangalo, on the 1st of July 2023 and asked for it to be submitted to Rome. In his letter, he laid out some suggestions for the Manfred Diocese and the Bamenda Archbishop. He calls on the bishop to treat priests as their brothers and co-workers and for them to be fathers and spiritual fathers to the priests.
And this week, Undaunted reported some inmates of the Bamenda Central Prison who died of food poisoning. It is reported that after visitors came into the prison with food, water, fufu, and eru, about a week ago, the food was taken into the prison where an inmate introduced a poisonous substance into the food. 4 inmates have been confirmed dead, while others are still under intensive care at the hospital after consuming the poisoned food. The poisonous substance believed to be the cause of their demise is reported to have been discovered under the bed of one of the prisoners. After examination at the Bamenda Regional Hospital, it was detected as an insecticide.
Well, Ambassador of the United States of America to La Republic to Cameroon, John Lamoura, has visited communities hosting Amazonian war victims taking refuge in the neighboring La Republic de Cameroon's West region. Report says during this trip to the West region, Ambassador Lamoura met with groups of Amazonian war victims in the Chang and Bafang, during which several individuals shared their stories, worries, anxieties, experiences, challenges, and hopes for the end of the war so that they can return to homeland. The U.S. diplomat also thanked the host communities and emphasized the U.S. Assembly and Embassy's ongoing support for refugees.
Another interesting topic we brought this week was the ESO Cultural and Development Association Caretaker Committee organizing the press conference in Douala, which happened on Saturday, June 17th, in reaction to a communique from the Colonial Mention SDO calling for applications from persons wishing to occupy the throne. After the passing of Fon Kumacho II over a year ago, the last straw that dismantled the colonial SDO scheme, the ESO Association gave the colonial senior divisional officer 2 months to react to their outing, either considering their grievances or rejecting it. Now on Thursday, July the 6th, 2023, making it 17 days since the ESO Cultural and Development Association called on the Colonial Mention SDO to consider their grievances, yet he made no statement. Pundits hold that the silence means the Colonial La Republic administrator has realized that the people of ESO are a hard nut to crack.
Well, this week we reported that the 3 arrested by the Ambazonian Restoration Forces on the 21st of May are still to learn. In a video which was taken for them regaining their freedom went further to giving thanks to the Colonial La Republic de Cameroon government ruler Paul Biya. Now, these are the same persons because of whom they were arrested. Thanking Dictator Biya is indicative of the fact that they consider him their hero instead. While he did not disclose how they escaped from armed men who had been charging and changing their location since their arrest on the 21st of May. Unconfirmed opinions holds that there was a negotiation and an agreement arrived between the forces and the captives.
Now, also, the Colonial La Republic's government, mocking Ambazonians, sent the Colonial Ministry of Public Works to evaluate the level of road construction. The colonial government Minister of Public Works, Emmanuel Nganu Jumesi, has wasted 2 days on his stay in mud in Amazonia, precisely in the Bamenda, the Midland Zone, is what he termed evaluating work progress on the Bamenda-Babaji Road. It is only another La Republic organized move to squander taxpayers' money. It is not his first or second. Months ahead, he will be in yet another mission that has never yielded any fruit. The road construction was announced in 1985, and the Colonial Public Works Minister is visiting in 2023, not for the reception of a constructed road, but to check the construction progress.
Beijing Community, a village in Belo local government area in Boyo County in the northern zone, has been plunged into mourning following the brutal killing of their Queen Mother. Queen Ngoche was brutally killed on Tuesday, July 4th, 2023, by trigger-happy Colonial La Republic de Cameroon soldiers who stormed the village, burning the Queen Mother and the palace to ashes. This sacrilegious incident has left the villagers in shock, devastated, and in disbelief as the phone of the Mejang and the entire village unexpectedly lost their queen burned inside the palace by the military.
Now, on the African scene, a justice opened an investigation on Monday following clashes between irregular migrants from sub Saharan Africa and residents of Sfax, Tunisia's second city where illegal immigration has been causing great tensions for months. The clashes with stone throwing pitted migrants against residents of the Rand district. Spokesman for the Sfax prosecutor's office, Fauzi Masmoudi, told AFP vehicles and homes were damaged during the clashes, which caused no casualties. But racial tensions in the Tunisian coastal city of Sfax flared into violence, targeting migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, dozens of whom were forcibly evicted from the city uh, as well. Also, amid the disturbances late Tuesday, police detained some and deported them as far away as Libya.
Well, a 41-year-old Tunisian man who was stabbed to death on Monday in an altercation with migrants led to the arrest of three suspects from the Cameroons. Youth in Tunisia called for vengeance on Tuesday at the funeral of the man stabbed to death during a scuffle between residents and the migrants from sub-Saharan Africa. Well, after the European Union Election Observation Mission, the EUEOM published its final report on the Nigerian presidential and gubernatorial elections last week, the federal government of Nigeria says it rejects the EU's 2023 elections observation reports on Nigeria, saying the report is biased, flawed, born out of inadequate coverage after 3 months. Reactions of this we also played for you. Well, the People's Democratic Party's presidential campaign responded and described the report of the European Union Election Monitoring Group on the 2023 general election as credible, which concluded that the last election was fraught with irregularities and failed to meet the minimum standard of credibility. Mr. Frank Shaibu, Special Assistant on Public Communications to the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, said this in a statement in Abuja, Nigeria on Sunday. He took a swipe at the spokesperson for the president, Bola Tinubu, for trying to discredit the EU's report.
Well, on the foreign scene, the total number of countries that could challenge the US dollar on the global stage has reached 41. The developing nations that want to accept BRICS currency hail from Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Belarus is the first country in Eastern Europe that expressed interest to accept the new BRICS currency. On the other hand, France has also shown its interest to attend the next BRICS summit in South Africa. Talks of the BRICS alliance launching a new currency could spell trouble for the prospect of the US dollar. A handful of financial sectors in the US earn profits as the world transacts in the US dollar for goods and services. If the new BRICS currency gains trust and strengthens itself in the global market, the US dollar could be on a path of decline. Also, the US will have no means to fund its deficit, making the American economy weaker on the international stage. Several financial sectors in the US could be affected, leading to a domino effect of economic crisis.
Well, the 8 US sectors that could be impacted by the formation of the new BRICS currency includes banking and finance, oil and gas, commodities, production and consumption, technology, tourism and travel, the foreign exchange market, the international trade. But on Thursday, we brought to you that the new development bank, a financial institution created by the BRICS bloc of emerging markets, says it doesn't have any immediate plans for the group to create a common currency. And that's all we have for you on today's recap. And coming up next would be exclusive discussion.